He's not leaving. Matthew Stafford is going to be back. We're going to tell you what it means for the Rams. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramley, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network. Now, the #1 sports podcast network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube. If you have yet, do us a huge favor. Join the party. Over 22,000 subscribers, trying to get to 23,000. So if you haven't yet, if you're a podcast listener, go check out the YouTube version as well. Subscribe. If you want to support every episode, drop a like, drop a comment. Podcast listeners, write us a review, read on the show. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. I've covered LA sports for over a decade, 24/7 sports, Bleach Report aside, the LA Sports Report. As always, I'm joined by the Rams pre, half, and post-game show host for the Rams flagship radio station, ESPN 710 LA. He's going to be entering his 12th season covering your Los Angeles Rams, the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. You can follow him on X at Travis Rogers. And on today's episode, we got a big announcement last night, kind of an unofficial, official announcement last night from Matthew Stafford. I mean, by the way that Sean McVay was smiling, I think that made it pretty clear what he was trying to say on the stage. Also, Matthew Stafford wins the MVP. We'll talk about that. And we're also talking about the Super Bowl, the greatest Rams moments in the Super Bowl. But first, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. All right. So, Travis, yes, winning the MVP is great, and we're very happy that Matthew Stafford had took home that award and pretty much essentially locks up his Hall of Fame career, in my opinion. But for this show, the purposes of this show, I think the biggest news is Matthew Stafford saying that he's basically going to be back, saying that he wants to be ready and when the Super Bowl is at SoFi Stadium next year in Los Angeles. And you saw Sean McVay with a big smile on his face clapping. They went to Kyron Williams. He's jumping up and down like a little kid. It was like he basically did the Jordan Belfort, Leonardo DiCaprio and Wolf of Wall Street. Like, I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving. So Matthew Stafford's going to be back next year. And that was the #1 most important thing for the Rams this offseason.
Yeah, I think that they've taken the biggest question mark that they had and put it to bed before it really even got started. That, you know, we've talked about it 100 times on this show, that if in the NFL, if you don't have a quarterback, you don't have much. And they just put their MVP winning quarterback. It's no more likely MVP or probable MVP. Their MVP winning quarterback is coming off his best season ever. And they're going to get him back again. And it's awesome. And, once that's officially done, it just lets everyone else kind of exhale and figure out where you need to go from here. I'm not particularly surprised. I'm thrilled. But this just made way too much sense, DMAC, right? That he's coming off of an MVP season. He's on a really good team. He's got Puka Nacua, very, very likely Devontae Adams next year. You've got a complimentary running game with two guys in Corum and Kyron Williams. You have an offensive line that just kept him pretty darn healthy all season long. He's still playing at a crazy high level, and they pay these guys $50-ish million a year. What part of this wasn't obvious to come back and play again? So it's great news. It puts the Rams right back in that small group of teams coming into the season that you would expect to compete for a Super Bowl. And, Rams fans everywhere can exhale knowing that number 9's coming back, and he gives them a chance to win every single time he goes out on the field.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's still playing at an extremely high level, an MVP level at this stage of his career. And the most important thing is he was, for the most part, healthy throughout the entire season. Exactly. He's always going to be dealing with stuff, getting banged up, but he's such a tough player that his 80% is basically other players healthy, right? I mean, as far as how he's playing the game. And he did talk to reporters after winning the award, went a little more in depth on his decision. He said, quote, "Something I've been thinking about and honestly talking with my family about even before the season ended, whether or not they wanted me to continue to play whether or not I felt like I wanted to keep playing. I ended the season on a healthy note and was a part of a great team. I had a bunch of teammates in the crowd, some coaches in the crowd, and just felt like it was the right thing to do at the right moment. It's a family decision. I have my girls with me, so it just felt right. Happy to come back. So a couple of things taken away from that statement is he kind of was like feeling it in the moment. It was like, let's do it now. So I think that was kind of a Stafford decision to say, hey, I'm going to use this opportunity with this MVP acceptance speech to say, all right, let's get the coaches, let's get the fan base excited. So, hey, one thing I want to say to Matthew Stafford is thank you for giving the fan base this on the Friday before the Super Bowl.
Right.
We're a little still in our feelings and we're still hurt. We're still recovering from that loss. And the second thing, too, is credit to the Rams. Les Snead, Sean McVay for putting this kind of team around him where it's not, hey, I'm coming back. I'm coming back to the Rams. It's a no-brainer to the team I'm coming back to because he could have gotten out of his contract easily. We talked about him in Montana and probably going to the Raiders and the Giants last year. So not only is he back, there's no fiasco about where he's going to be coming back to.
Yeah, well, think about it like this. Like it kind of struck me last night watching all of this. Like imagine a scenario where Matthew Stafford is still in Detroit. Does any of what we're talking about still happen? Like, are we seeing, Matthew Stafford on the dais accepting the MVP award as a Detroit Lion? Are we seeing Matthew Stafford announce to the world that he's coming back for another season at 38 years old as a Detroit Lion? And I really believe the answer to both of those questions is no way. Absolutely not. That the Rams, I don't want to say rejuvenated or revitalized him, but they had allowed the end of his career to extend in a way that was never going to happen there, that was never probably going to happen in most places, because you put him with a head coach that knows exactly how to utilize him. You put him on a team that's got tons of offensive weapons. You've kept him relatively healthy along the way. Why wouldn't he want to keep playing? This isn't... and I hesitate to do this a little bit because both of these guys were still playing at a very high level at the end of their career or near the end of their career. But think about it kind of in terms of LeBron James and Clayton Kershaw. Like when Kershaw came back, he clearly was still Kershaw, but he had come over the top of the mountain. LeBron James is still one of the better players in the NBA, but he's coming over the top of the mountain. Matthew Stafford is still at the top. Now, maybe next year is the beginning of coming over the top and starting to see some things like, oh, that didn't look great, but we haven't seen it yet. And until you start to see, so like Aaron Rodgers, I think is a good example. Like, does he have moments where he's really, really good? Sure he does. But you watch him most of the time, you're like, yeah, that's an old player right there. That's not it. That's not true with Stafford. Stafford's been able to just look like himself the entire time. And I was never really worried about him going somewhere else. If he was ever going to leave, it would have been last year or the year before. And he looked around and he said, yeah, maybe the money's better, but those guys stink. Those guys stink. And I understand the money's important. I'm not saying it isn't. But when you got $400 million in the bank, do you really need the extra 10 to go be on a terrible team? I don't think you do. So I never really sweated it all that much that he was coming back, and I'm thrilled that he'll be here in 2026.
Absolutely. And I think my favorite thing about Matthew Stafford returning is I feel like I can say this with full confidence is you mentioned the money, you mentioned can he win another Super Bowl and get to the Hall of Fame and all those things that come along with having a great career. I think the number one biggest reason why he's back is he loves to play the game of football. He likes to throw a pigskin to receivers and tight ends and hand the ball to running backs and go in the locker room and celebrate, because once that's gone, it's gone. There's nothing that replaces it. Also, cannot believe you dropped a Clayton Kershaw bar in the middle of a Matthew Stafford take. I mean, come on. First of all, we know it's the fun fact of the century. And I know, look, here's the thing. I know it's a running gag. I know it's a joke. Yes, Matthew Stafford and Clayton Kershaw both went to the same high school, grew up together in Highland Park, Texas, inside Dallas and things like that. I know it's a cliche. It's a hack at this point, but I don't care. I'm bringing it back. It's kind of insane. It's kind of insane that these dudes grew up with each other, went to the same high school, both won an MVP for Los Angeles sports teams, are both going to the Hall of Fame, are both champions. Like, what a chance of that? It's kind of insane.
It's bonkers. It is just, I mean, I think about your best friend in high school. Think about my best friend in high school. And imagine if he were the most successful person to ever do what it is that he does, and you were the most successful person ever to do what you do, and you guys were best friends when you're 15 years old. It doesn't make a lot of sense. It's awesome. It's a really cool story. And like you said, that they both ended up in Los Angeles. And, Kershaw spending his entire career here, obviously, is special. And I could not agree with you more. He loves playing football. You can see it. You can see the competitiveness. You can see the way that he interacts with his teammates. I'll use Aaron Rodgers as another example. Does he look like he's loving it out there? Not so much, right? That looks like, man, I don't know what the hell else I'm going to do with my life. I guess I might as well play again. And Stafford's out there because he looks like he loves it.
I could not agree more. I mean, his why is like, dude, like, I just love to ball out. And like, he wants to win, and all of a sudden that comes along with it. He's as fiery and intense a competitor as he gets, but the dude can just still sling it straight up, and it still looks pretty, and he still has the talent. By the way, the oldest first-time MVPs in history, Matthew Stafford, 37 years of age, 331 days. He's right up there with some of the oldest first-time MVPs. Dennis Eckersley, shout out to Dennis Eckersley, 38 years, 1 day, and then Willie Stargell. All these guys have Dodgers connections, by the way. Willie Stargell hit 2 home runs outside of Dodger Stadium. Dennis Eckersley, didn't he give up a home run at something? I don't know. Willie Stargell, yeah. 39 years of age. So not only getting MVPs, but I mean, getting MVP at the later stages of his career, that's extra impressive. And coming up next, we're going to talk about what this means for the offseason for the Rams. And also, is Matthew Stafford now a lock to make it to the Hall of Fame? That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
Listen up to this, D-Mac. Finding a doctor you actually like can feel like discovering a diamond in the rough. Sure, you want someone who's in network, nearby, and has availability, but you also want a doctor who listens, makes you feel comfortable, and explains things clearly. That kind of doctor does exist, and finding them is easy with ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free app and website that helps you find and book high-quality in-network doctors so you can find someone you love without all the hassle. We're talking about booking in-network appointments with more than 150,000 providers across all 50 states, covering over 200 specialties, from primary care and dentistry to dermatology and eye care. ZocDoc makes the process so simple. You can search by specialty or symptoms and actually build a care team that works for you. You can see real-time availability and book instantly, no phone calls, no waiting on hold. And whether you want to go in person or do a video visit, ZocDoc makes it easy either way. So stop putting off those doctor appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL to find and instantly book a doctor you love today. That's ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL. ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL. Thanks to ZocDoc for sponsoring this message. And if you've ever tried to hire someone who looked good on paper but wasn't a great fit, you know how important that can be. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. All you need is Indeed if you're hiring. Stop struggling to get your post seen on other sites. Indeed's sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates even faster. So if you're struggling to get that post seen, it helps your listing stand out and reach quality candidates like that faster. Sponsored jobs boost your post to the people who are the best match for your role, and that makes all the difference in the world. In fact, according to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to hire a report than non-sponsored jobs. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help you give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. Just go to Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on Locked On Rams. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Do it the right way with Indeed.
And we're off and running here on Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, big shout out to those everyday listeners out there watching and listening to every single episode of Locked On Rams. Cannot thank you enough. And I want to thank you again if you join the Everyday Listeners Club. Go to LockedOnRams.Supercast today to join. You get ad-free premium audio wherever you get your podcast, no ads, Also, you get access to a members-only Discord where you can talk Rams football in the Discord. I'm chiming in there too, 24/7, 365. You can talk Rams football. Also, exclusive merch. It is how you can take your Rams fandom to the next level. And guess what? This offseason is going to be as interesting as the regular season in the playoffs because the Rams have a Super Bowl roster to build. And Travis, we've talked about this over the last week about the Rams going all in and Matthew Stafford coming back. It's great to talk about, but you also need to make it official too. And now it's official. Now we know that the biggest domino has fallen, and that is that Matthew Stafford is going to be under center for the Rams next season, and it's going to heavily influence how the Rams go about managing this roster in the offseason. Les Snead said a couple of days ago that if Matthew Stafford comes back, there's going to be an all-in type of mindset, an F them picks type of mindset that we haven't seen even the last couple of seasons, because we have seen them put together a roster that's a contender, but it's also one that was about the present and the future. I think it's all about the present now, and I think the first big thing is trying to surround Matthew Stafford with as much win now talent as you can to go for a Super Bowl that is going. And I think to the other factor, it's in SoFi Stadium again. Like all those factors are like, okay, like let's go.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think that there's a couple of things here that when you say talk about surrounding with talent, I think that includes giving him a better defense, giving him a more complete team, fixing the special teams in a meaningful way, that you're not blowing games because you can't execute some fundamental things like making field goals. So I think the entire roster needs to be, polished a little bit, but in particular on the defensive and special team side. So I think that's number one. You mentioned it, that this is going to be an all-in situation. I agree, but think about this for a sec. Think about what the last 2 years have been like when, I don't want to say they didn't do everything they could, but it wasn't that F them picks mentality, that all in. 2 years ago, they lose to Philadelphia in the snow in a game they had a really good chance to win, and that team might have gone to the Super Bowl. This year, they weren't in the Super Bowl by 4 points, and a bunch of the losses that led that game to being in Seattle were because of teeny tiny little things. Those were two teams in the NFC Championship game. Those are two teams that got really close to going to the Super Bowl without being, air quotes, all in. So if they do decide to go all in the 2026 Rams, and they do use these picks to, upgrade the roster or trade them for other players like we've seen them do in the past, Jalen Ramsey being the best example of that, then I can't imagine what this team might look like, because when they decide they're going to go, they go. I don't think that's what it was in 24. I don't think that's what it was in 25. I think they kind of, I don't want to say stumbled into a really good team, but I think they were mildly surprised by how good the team actually was, and they were a little short in some areas. I don't think they're going to be a little short in some areas this year. I don't think we're going to be talking about this a year from now saying they should have done X, Y, Z, but they didn't because they were worried about what they were going to do in 2028, 2029, 2030. I think they're going to fire every bullet they have in this upcoming season.
Yeah, and that's going to be the biggest point of emphasis. And I couldn't agree more that it's about not the talent around him necessarily, is because the offensive line for the most part is intact. The tight ends, you already drafted one with your highest pick last year in Terrence Ferguson, which you feel is going to have a more prominent role, and Sean McVay is very excited about him. You have one of, or arguably the best receiver in football in Puka Nacua. They've already said Devontae Adams is going to be back, so your only addition there really is going to be maybe a wide receiver 3. I've talked about drafting Mekhi Lemon out of USC, fight on, by the way. And also the running back situation, you brought back Kyron Williams on a new deal, and you drafted Blake Corum in the 3rd round a few years ago. So the offense, for the most part, is pretty much set. Outside of basically wide receiver 3, it's the defense. And I think we can use last night as a way of almost a barometer in evaluating next season. It was awesome for him to win the MVP, but it could be a good thing next year if Matthew Stafford isn't even in MVP talks, because it would mean potentially that the defense is so good that you don't need 47 touchdowns or 46 touchdowns and 4,700 plus yards for Matthew Stafford just to be one of the best teams in the NFL. Now, there's a difference between a guy that's still playing at an MVP level versus one that is in the MVP campaign as far as just the numbers and the narrative and things like that. So I want to see Matthew Stafford next season with a more comfortable path to the playoffs, and knowing that his age is what it is, 37, 38, getting up there, that you can almost get yourself 10 to 15 wins in the regular season, but have him as fresh and ready to go when that playoff run starts, and then you can empty the clip when you're in the postseason.
Yeah, they needed every last one of those touchdowns, every last one of those yards. They needed him to do everything he did last year, and they still came up a hair short. I think that asking him to do less is actually a really good sign, because it means that you have leads. It means that you have comfortable leads. And look, you'd love to have a monster season, both Kyren Williams and Blake Corum. Have them both set records for career touches. Have them both set records for career touchdowns. And let Matthew Stafford, I don't want to say relax, because that's not the right word, but at least have a little bit less on his plate. And look, when you need him to pull one out of your ear to win a game, great. You have a guy that can do it. When you need someone to go out there and say, hey, listen, today's just one of those days where we need you to throw for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. Okay, I can do it. But if he just had a season full of 265-yard, 2 touchdown, no interception games, it's not going to win him the MVP, but they probably win every game. You know what I mean? And I'm not calling it 17-0, but if he just has really, really solid numbers day after day after day, week after week after week, that's great news for the Rams. When you get these massive numbers, that usually means you're in crazy shootout situations. And I don't think that the Rams want to try to that's kind of what they were doing this year, where they needed the guy to go to an MVP level to get where they got to. It would be nice to ask a little less of him.
For sure. And that's, I think, going to be top of mind for the organization is, hey, like, how can we make life a little easier for you by putting better talent across the board? And I think that's what we're going to see. And just kind of before you get to the next segment, I mean, you're always going to kind of go back to who won the trade. And is it the Rams? Is it the Lions? I think at this point, if you're doing winners and losers, I almost think you go the individual first. I think Matthew Stafford, then the Rams, I think. I mean, they're both winners, big winners. But think about Matthew Stafford. Like, the reason why he didn't get all pros in Pro Bowl selections was because he was on the Lions. And not only is he getting those with the Rams, he's getting MVPs in Super Bowls. Like, it's him going to the Rams is ultimately going to be the difference in him making the Hall of Fame, which is just an incredible, incredible feat in the National Football League. And you kind of look at just that era of guys like the Phillip Rivers of the world, the Eli Mannings of the world, and kind of his era. Really, the only locks are the Aaron Rodgers and the Ben Roethlisbergers. Of course, there's Tom Brady and guys like that. They kind of go without saying, but I mean, he's going to get in now. And like the most part of his career, we knew Tom Brady was going to be a Hall of Famer like the last 8 years, 10 years of his career, right? But it's kind of wild to think that for like 16 of the years of Matthew Stafford's career, he wasn't a Hall of Fame lock. And now the last 2 years, like, he's a lock now.
Yeah, you're right. I think, we could probably sit here and do a bunch of episodes on what I'm about to say, but how many different players have you seen in how many different sports that you're like, man, I wish that guy would have been on a good team, because you just never got to see what it looked like because he was buried in a bad organization, or his team wouldn't spend money, or whatever the circumstances might be. But you're just like, God, one time, how nice would it be to have seen him on a team that was really, really good? That was Matthew Stafford's destiny until that trade got made. He was going to be one of those, man, Stafford was really good, but boy, man, the Lions are just so pathetic for so long. We'll never really have an idea what he might have been able to do. Now we do. Now we know exactly how good he could have been. He was an MVP. He's a Super Bowl champion. He's a deadlock cinch Hall of Famer, and just unlocking that. And I love how you said it, Doug, like the winners of that deal, number 1, Matthew Stafford, number 2, the Los Angeles Rams. And quite frankly, I don't think there's a huge loser in this deal. The Lions got a lot better in that deal as well. Jared Goff, I think, has found a home in Detroit. He's popular there. Now, they haven't won a Super Bowl yet, and maybe they won't. Maybe they missed their window in that situation, but they got better too. So I don't think anybody is banging their head on the desk saying we got hosed in this deal. But you're right about that Stafford is at the top of the list for sure. Yeah, he would have been Mike Trout of the NFL, right, in Detroit. Like, that's who he was. Now, how about this? He is just the 15th quarterback to win the NFL AP MVP and the Super Bowl in his career. Of course, not in the same season. We would love to see that. But he does have both those on his resume. And there was been 14 other quarterbacks that have accomplished that. 10 of them are in the Hall of Fame. 10 are in the Hall of Fame. Joe Theismann, or Theismann, as I'll always call him,
right,
marketing stunt,
is not a Hall of Famer, right? But the other ones, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, they have a pretty decent chance. So what I'm saying is like he's going to join that group. So it's a beautiful thing. We'll talk a little more about it this offseason, kind of deeper dive into his Hall of Fame case if anyone's doubting. But coming up next, talk a little bit of Super Bowl memories. Maybe we'll get some Super Bowl picks. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
What if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not you against the house. It's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. We're talking Robinhood prediction markets changing the game. It's people moving the action. So when momentum shifts, you can move with it. You always knew the game, but never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now you can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator, play by play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood. Now available across the U.S. Download the Robinhood app now to begin. Futures and cleared swaps trading involves significant risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Event contacts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives LLC, a registered futures commission merchant and swap firm. And as the new year gets going, a lot of people are trying to simplify their routines, and dinner is a big one. Between busy work days, cold winter nights, not here, and when packed schedules, having an easy, reliable dinner makes a huge difference. That's where Home Chef comes in. Home Chef takes the stress out of cooking by delivering fresh, pre-portioned ingredients right to your door with easy-to-follow recipes that actually taste great. They're rated #1 by users of other meal kits for quality, convenience, value, taste, and recipe ease, and it's easy to see why. Over 30 weekly options, including family-sized meals and different dietary choices. Everything arrives pre-portioned, so there's no prep, there's less mess, and no wasted food. So you're saving time and money. Home Chef customers save an average of $86 per month on groceries. So for a limited time, Home Chef is offering my listeners, our listeners, Locked On Rams listeners, 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Just go to homechef.com/lockedon. That's homechef.com/lockedon for 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. You must be an active subscriber to receive free dessert.
And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, Travis, so Sports Illustrated released their top 60 moments of the Super Bowl. There's a lot of Rams moments represented. Their number 59 moment was Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp. We know what happened there. You had Matthew Stafford and the Rams trailing 20-16 with 3:07 left. He had a 2nd and 7 at the Bengals 46-yard line. And Matthew Stafford, he had a throw that really, I think when you rank those top moments of Matthew Stafford, this is the highlight you're going to see, that no look to Cooper Kupp for the 22-yard gain. Just incredible throw there. That's pretty low on the list, but I mean, it's kind of a deeper cut, I guess, for Super Bowl.
And look, I get it. The game-winning touchdown in the Super Bowl is going to beat a play that sets up the game-winning touchdown. But I'm with you. That play, I was sitting in the press box at SoFi Stadium when that play took place, and I didn't get it. Like there was like, okay, whatever, completed, first down, keep it moving, and let's see what's about to happen next. It wasn't until after the game where I'd gotten home and I got to see a bunch of different various angles to what that play actually was before you realize, wait, run that back. Wait, let me see that again. Wait, where? Holy blank. Like, I cannot believe, A, that he did it, and B, that he did it in that situation, in that particular game. That's like trying a trick shot in Game 7 of the NBA Finals and pulling it off just to see if you can do it. It was extraordinary. I was talking with DeMarco on my radio show yesterday, and we kind of got into this, that idea of Matthew Stafford looking this way and throwing that way. And he said it's changing the way the defensive coordinators have to teach defense. That you can't, the way it has always been is you just follow the guy's head, you follow his eyes, you see where he's going, and you kind of cheat to one side or the other. Now you got to wait till the ball's out of his hand because you have no idea where the ball's actually going to end up going. When I think of him, and look, he just won the MVP. He's a Super Bowl champion. He's going to be a Hall of Famer, all this stuff. But the first thing that comes into my mind is his ability to throw that ball without looking where he's going to throw it, and it's almost always on the money. It's my favorite moment of Matthew Stafford's career as a Ram, for sure.
For sure. I mean, the absolute, like, he's like the first modern quarterback to really do this regularly. And that's why, I mean, I always say this about Matthew Stafford. He's your favorite quarterback's favorite quarterback, right? Like, you might like Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes likes Matthew Stafford, right? I mean, because he's the guy that kind of does this kind of stuff and has the arm talent to do just that. You go deeper on this list, you got the Super Bowl, the 73-yarder, Isaac Bruce in Super Bowl 34, the 73-yard touchdown. And then at number 13, I just want to say this, I think, is ridiculously too low. And of course, you know I'm talking about the tackle. Mike Jones, arm tackle around the hip. The greatest, I think, kind of one of the greatest tackles in football history. I mean, I think he's the greatest tackle in football history at 13. At 13, that should be higher on this list.
It feels like it. I had a chance to meet Mike Jones. He came in and did our show one day, and I asked him, I said, okay, so take me through it. Kevin Dyson has the ball. You either make the tackle and you win the Super Bowl, or you miss the tackle and you lose the Super Bowl. Like, does this go? He goes, and he never, had it the whole way. Like, he wasn't going to shake him in that moment. He goes, it actually was a tackle that I was entirely confident that he was going to make. So, but I'm with you. You know, you watch it over and over again, and, you know, we're a yard short from having the biggest heartbreak and having Tennessee, of all teams, have a Super Bowl championship along the way. So, it's right up there. It's one of the great Super Bowls that we've seen. You know, great ending. Like you said, usually they end with incredible, you know, offensive plays. It's in a small group of games that ended with a crazy defensive play, and it's as good as you're ever going to see. You can't get any closer than that.
I think it literally was 0 seconds on the clock. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's like, and by the way, the karma for that was that Jeff Fisher would end up going to the Rams and kind of ruin them for quite some time. But it all balances out, I guess. I mean, the plays in front of that, you've got John Riggins breaking a 43-yard run.
Good one.
That's solid. But did that win the Super Bowl?
Kind of, but not like it wasn't like a walk-off.
0 seconds on the clock.
I know, that's the difference.
My football career like ended at like varsity-ish, like not playing as much. I was more of a baseball player in high school with some basketball mixed in. But if you ever try to make a tackle at the hips like that with your arms, it's like impossible. The level of strength that he had to have was just absolute next level stuff. You got Lynn Swann making 2 levitating leaps.
Yeah.
Super Bowl 10. That's iconic. Santonio Holmes. Yeah, that was a great catch back of the end zone.
Yeah.
Doug Williams, first black quarterback to win the Super Bowl. Definitely deserves that. We've got James Harrison, 100 yards. I kind of love that one.
That was a great one.
Yeah, the interception return. Joe Montana to John Taylor with 34 seconds left. You got wide right. Oh, man, that one was pretty bad.
Malcolm Butler, number 1.
Malcolm Butler's number 1. And that's kind of more the stupidity. Yeah. That's kind of more the stupidity of Pete Carroll. I probably would. I guess, I don't know. I'm okay with that. I think the David Tyree catch definitely deserves.
That was bonkers, too. Yeah, I forgot about that one. That's got to be.
But Malcolm Butler definitely is the most shocking.
Yeah.
And like I said, that's the hardest that anyone's ever chewed gum in the history of gum. All right, real quick. Seahawks or Patriots? Don't even need a score, man.
Seahawks.
Going Seahawks too. Seahawks. I'm going Seahawks. Brown and I pick the Sea Chickens. Honestly, I'm not making a pick. I don't even care anymore. Like, I hate the Super Bowl. I hate the Super Bowl more than I've ever hated any Super Bowl.
It's not terribly inspiring, but if the Patriots actually find a way to win this game, then everything we've been saying about them all season long, I guess, doesn't matter at all. But they still haven't run into a great team playing their best guys at the most important moments, and they're about to. So that's why I think the run comes to an end.
Yeah, I think I'll take the Patriots, and Drake May win the Super Bowl MVP and them getting 7. I hate it, but I think that's what will happen. And I just don't want the Seahawks to have the same amount of Super Bowls as the Rams. It doesn't sit well with me. But that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. And buckle up, Ramley. The offseason just beginning. It's going to be the most important offseason in the history, not just of Rams football, not just the NFL, most important of any sports team in the history of mankind. So lock in, Ramley. Now is the time. But that's going to do it. You can follow Travis Rogers at Travis Rogers. Go watch his show today, DeMarco and Travis, 3 to 6 drive time, ESPN LA 710. And you can follow me at XDMAC_LA. And until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.